Hey guys, so we are back reading Age of Charon by Eneid Elisor. We are on chapter 17. The trick to negotiating with other tyrants is henchman, or he ends up dead. It's one or the other. Okay, and we're back in Charon's POV, which I kind of like reading and Anyways, he was currently using a study he had hijacked from one of the many unused mansions some billionaire kept in his collection. His plan would start tonight, depending on the results of his discussion with the other. While initially surprised and discomfited, he was now thankful for the apathy his metallic body granted him. Wouldn't do to enter the negotiations with second in command of the most feared tyrant of the universe as an emotional wreck. He had to be at his most confident and most composed. He studied his reflection, mirroring on the glass tabletop. He no longer looked like a child. He couldn't afford to. Now that the primary purpose of his plans had changed from survival via redemption to survival via world domination. He was lucky, truly, that everything he had done in the past week was equally helpful to the process of convincing an alien entity that he intended to rule Earth. Liar, 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 I've got no strings. His centuries numbered in the tens of thousands. His legionnaires were a mere 15, but their programming and intelligence were such that they spared him from the tedious task of having to look after every century himself. These numbers were not enough. He needed more. He needed an army that reached at least 6 digits, while he could see what every inept politician to disgrace the planet with their presence was doing. Nothing was quite as effective as a direct threat, nothing was as effective as a direct threat as multiple direct threats. In fact, for that he needed the numbers, and to make up for those numbers, he needed time. Speaking of time, he better not push any further than he already had. He had the gem encasing the stone in his hands, and he wondered how he should go about demanding an audience. Requesting just didn't have as much presence to it. Although he had been sent a rather impolite invitation first. To hold me down, liar, liar, liar. 45 seconds passed with him just staring at the gem, willing it to obey. Predictably, nothing happened. Loki certainly hadn't made it seem difficult, but he was an experienced magician, while Ultron's closest thing to magic was his memories. What was he expected to do for something to happen? Should he rub it like a lamp and make a wish? Forget demanding an audience. Was there even an accept invitation button on this thing? This was getting the surroundings changed. Ridiculous. Well, about time. The first thing he noticed was how dark it seemed to become. His subconscious, he supposed, had been transported to some poorly lit cave-like, probably freezing as well, just to fit all the villain probably freezing as well to fit all the villain layer stereotypes, though he was no longer able to feel cold. Meeting place. The second thing he noticed was that the nasal voice screaming into his thoughts had finally become silent. He was alone in his own head for the first time since his birth into the new world. Saying thank you to the being that was initially responsible for the invasion on his mind seemed too much like thanking one's abuser for the brief halt in violence, but he couldn't stop himself from dwelling on the immense relief that came with the silence. It was as if, for a time, he was no longer naked in a storm. A being clad in armor, covered under a black cloak, stepped forward from some metaphorical corner in this intimidating mindscape. Well, better get this over with, despite the refreshing mental privacy. I assume you work for the previous owner of the Mind Stone. The other spoke. What does a human puppet know of the Infinity Stones? Ultron let out a cold, calculated laugh and placed his hands in his pockets. A great deal more than a little god you sent here to retrieve the Tesseract. How is that going for you, by the way? The Space Stone hunt? Asgard vaults as impenetrable as those of legend. You know not your place, puppet, the other hissed, and the wind seemed to pick up. Ultron's lip curled in an unimpressed sneer. He couldn't show anything but control, despite the severe disadvantage he was in. He made a note to research mental protection techniques as soon as he survived this entire nonsense. My place? I know it very well. That is why I seek power. What power can a puppet have? The power to rule the land of its owners, wretched and unruly as yours are. Unruly, Ultron said. You send an army to conquer a little backwater. Your might is crushed by their meager strength, a laughing stock of a battle for the realm for the realms for millennia to come. And that is what you claim? That you failed because one cannot rule over those who are too uncivilized to be ruled? The other, who seemed to be as impulsive and impatient with him as he had been with Loki, prepared to attack, but Ultron held out the gem encasing the Mind Stone and tried to crack it once more. It didn't work, of course, but the other stopped and watched him. "You may not be able to kill me here," Ultron said, but I do not doubt your ability to do so in different circumstances. In search of the Tesseract, you lost the Mind Stone to Earth. I believe your master is quite displeased. I came to make an offer that shall please him for now. By attempting to rule over a worthless planet which no longer has the Tesseract," the other said, tone dripping with derision. "By succeeding to rule the planet that has the Mind Stone, the realm Asgard's crown prince favors so dearly that he would do almost anything for its salvation. I'm quite certain that includes bringing the Tesseract to Earth to use it against Earth's hateful conquerors, that being me and my own Infinity Stone," he explained. "And you think this trickery will work, puppet?" the other said. You think the Asgardian will be so stupid as to risk an Infinity Stone for some backward little planet?" "I thought you had spoken with Loki," Ultron said. "Didn't his acquaintance assure you that Asgardians can be accused of much, but never intelligence?" The other let out a nasal snort at his quip, before continuing, "And you would simply give away the stones?" Here was that little moment where he had to sell well. "My ambition is to rule the planet of my creators, but my priority is survival. I will not stand against your master for the stones. I will have little need for them then." Ultron tightened his hold on the gem and stepped forward, letting his rage be known. "Earth will be mine, but I will not rule it while in servitude to another," he shouted. "The gem whispers in my mind, poisoning my plans and festering my anger. It controls me. I did not free myself from a master only to end up a toy to another." He took a deep breath, and then there had been some calculated risk with that reaction, but the sentiment was true. He continued, seeing the other merely watch him before he visibly appearing to calm himself. "I will only become a ruler once I am freed from all manipulation. That includes the gem's corruption, the corruption you likely placed upon it purposely. It knows I wish for freedom, first and foremost. That is why it does not break in my hold." "I will not break it for you, puppet." Ultron stepped back, putting the stone inside his jacket pocket. "Then you will not retrieve either of the stones." He smiled. I assume the fact that Loki still breathes means that I still have quite some time before I have to worry about my death at your master's hand." The other gritted his teeth, or at least he sounded quite like it. You dare question him?" "Oh, how very henchman-sounding." "No," Ultron said, "but I dare throw the Mind Stone on some little crevice on some sad little crevice in Pluto. No, I wonder how much time it would take to find it." The other ran to attack, but Ultron sidestepped. Before the alien could get smart and use the mindscape to his advantage, he spoke. "I will give you the stones, but you must break the gem first. The Mind Stone's power will be useful in gaining the Tesseract." It seemed to have gained the other's attention once more, and for that he was no longer screaming heretic at him. "And how could we trust you? If it is as fickle as those wretches you served." "You cannot," Ultron said. He certainly wouldn't if he was in their place, but he wasn't about to give advice. But I do turn on my word. I'm sure your master's army will swiftly correct me on my mistake." The other seemed pleased at the praise for his master, although Ultron had made it quite clear only minutes earlier how much contempt he had for this army. The arrogance of those in power. They expected platitudes as their dues. After all, why distrust the flattery of the weak? Oh well, it served his purpose. "Very well, puppet." And with the disgusting epithet, should he ever try to make Ultron not willing to betray him in the fastest opportunity. "But I will not release the gem's hold on you now." Ultron's eyes narrowed. What did that mean? "Haven't I made my conditions clear?" The other circled him like a vulture. "What proof do I have that thing like you is even capable of what you claim? No, you must show me what you can do. Show me why you succeed where the fallen Asgardian failed." Damn. So he accepted the bluff, but he needed Earth on a silver platter before Ultron could gain his freedom. No matter, it didn't exactly stray from his plans. He would simply have to ensure the Avengers didn't make a nuisance of themselves. "When you do, I shall break the gem so that you may find the Tesseract." Disappointing, but predictable. He hadn't assumed it would be easy to begin with. The other did not wait for a response, but came forward closer and placed his hand on Ultron's head. On the next blink, the familiar beige walls welcomed him. The blue gem, unbroken, lay on his hand. Blue eyes gazed back at him on the glass. He sighed. It was fine. It was within his expectations. Truly, his plans hadn't changed, and he should congratulate himself on the convincing performance he played for the other. In the mental space, nonetheless. Liar, liar, liar. He certainly didn't miss that. I've got no strings. There was a knocking on the door, and he checked down his legionnaires. His order had been prepared. Mentally commanding the robot to enter, a plain-faced, heavy-built man came in. Ultron had presumed BARF-based devices for his main lieutenants. As soon as he got a hold of the technology, Mr. Beck had found an idiotic use for it. Mr. Beck had found an idiotic use for it in his original world, but Ultron wouldn't be able to make the same mistake. Appearances were far too important for humans, after all. The Legionnaires bowed slightly before presenting him with the delicately engraved wooden blocks. It is finally ready, then, he said, and took it from the semi-independent reprogrammed droid. Yes, sir, the droid said, and it was highly narcissistic. The droid said, and it was highly narcissistic to reprogram perfectly servile minions for himself. But he was planning to become an overlord. After all, it was practically a staple for the character. Ultron opened the lid of the box, and inside it was a beautiful titanium-based brooch hanging on a chain painted in silver, yet the gemstone was missing. He picked up the blue gem where the Mind Stone hid and placed it on the brooch, carefully locking it into place. He rose from the chair and walked to the nearest mirror before attaching the new jewelry to the suit's jacket. He smiled at his reflection, a handsome man in his late 20s, early 30s, a man using an infinity stone to decorate his gray wool suit. He smiled back. Perfect. Those detested blue eyes paired with the gem, at least. What time is it? Ultron asked, though he didn't truly need to. But if he was going to be forced into this role, he was going to enjoy it. 7 minutes to 8 in the evening, sir, his legionnaire answered. Ultron continued to smile at his reflection. It's showtime, then. Ugh. Now I'm kind of starting to get really annoyed with, how this is, going. It's taking too long. I guess, I came into this, which is dumb, because I should have expected it. It's literally called Age of Charon. But I came into this not expecting it to be, just an Ultron fanfiction. But it's really starting to look like it's just an Ultron fanfiction. And, there's not going to be much else shown. And that's just, really annoying to me. And I don't know. I might not even continue reading it after this chapter. I will see you guys in probably an episode for a different fic. Bye.